The ship dropped out of warp with a soft hum. Space stopped stretching around it. The stars became still again. Commander Threll stood at the front of the bridge. His eyes were fixed on the main screen. Behind him, dozens of Korvax officers worked quietly at their stations. The air felt calm. Too calm. "Report," Threll said. An officer checked her panel. "We are in position, Commander. This is the coordinate. Earth's old base should be right below us." Threll nodded slowly. He had waited a long time for this moment. 30,000 years to be exact. The Korvax were an old species. They had traveled across many star systems. They had built outposts on hundreds of worlds. But this system was special. Long ago, their ancestors had found a small blue planet with strange, primitive creatures living on it. Those creatures called themselves humans. The Korvax had studied them quietly. They built a massive base under the surface of Earth, hidden from human eyes. From there, they watched. They took notes. They decided humans were interesting, but not dangerous, not yet. Then a war broke out on the other side of the galaxy. The Korvax needed every ship, every soldier, every resource. So they left Earth. They sealed the base and told themselves they would return one day. That day had finally come. "Bring us closer," Threll ordered. "I want a full scan of the base." The ship moved forward, silent and smooth. On the screen, Earth grew larger. Blue oceans, green land, white clouds moving slowly over everything. It looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. "Commander," the officer said again, her voice tight. "I'm not getting a reading." Threll turned to her. "What do you mean, no reading?" "I mean there's nothing there. No base, no structure, no metal signature, nothing." Threll walked toward her station. He looked at the screen himself. The exact coordinates where the base should be showed only dirt, rock, and grass, nothing else. "Run the scan again," he said. She did. The result was the same. Threll felt something cold move through his chest. The Korvax base had been enormous. It was built deep into the ground with walls of reinforced alloy, designed to survive earthquakes, floods, and even direct attacks. It was not something that could simply disappear. "Check for damage," Threll said. "Look for signs of an explosion, a collapse, anything." The officer's fingers moved quickly over the controls. After a moment, she looked up, confused. "There's nothing, sir. No crater, no debris, no radiation. It's like the base was never built at all." The bridge went silent. Every Korvax officer turned to look at the main screen. Threll stared at the empty patch of land. His mind raced through possibilities. Perhaps this was the wrong location. Perhaps the humans had moved the base, buried it deeper, hidden it somehow. But the coordinates were correct. He had checked them himself, many times during the long journey back. "Play the last recorded logs," he said. "Before we left this system, 30,000 years ago." A hologram flickered to life above the control panel. It showed the base as it once was. A massive dome-shaped structure, half buried in rock with towers reaching toward the surface. Korvax soldiers walked through its halls. Scientists studied strange human artifacts in glass containers. It was full of life and purpose. Then the recording ended, and the screen returned to the live feed. Empty grass, empty dirt. Nothing. "This does not make sense," Threll muttered. An older officer named Vess stepped forward. He had served the Korvax fleet for centuries. His face showed deep lines of experience and caution. "Commander," Vess said carefully, "perhaps we should consider another possibility." "Go on." "Perhaps the humans found it." The bridge grew tense. Nobody spoke for a moment. "The base was designed to remain hidden," Threll said. "Even from advanced technology. There is no way primitive creatures could have located it." Vess did not look convinced. 30,000 years is a long time, Commander. Much can change in that time. Threll wanted to dismiss the idea. When the Korvax had left, humans were still simple. They fought each other with basic weapons. They built small villages and told stories about gods in the sky. They were curious, sometimes clever, but far from advanced. The idea that such creatures could find and remove an entire Korvax base was almost laughable. And yet, the proof was right in front of him. The base was gone. "Send a shuttle down," Threll said finally. "I want a team on the surface immediately, full scanning equipment, full defense protocols." "Yes, Commander." Within minutes, a small shuttle detached from the main ship and began its descent toward Earth. Inside sat 6 Korvax soldiers, along with Vess and a young science officer named Dara. Threll remained on the bridge, watching the shuttle's progress on the screen, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. The shuttle broke through the clouds. Below, the land stretched out in every direction. Hills covered with grass, forests moving gently in the wind, a river cutting through the landscape like a silver ribbon. "Beautiful," Dara whispered, looking out the window. Vess did not share her calm. His eyes scanned every detail, searching for anything unusual. "Stay alert," he said. "This planet is not what it seems." The shuttle landed softly on the exact coordinates. The doors opened and the team stepped out onto the grass. The air was fresh and clean. Wind moved through the trees nearby. Birds called somewhere in the distance. It did not feel like a hidden war zone. It felt like nothing at all had ever happened here. "Begin scanning," Vess ordered. The soldiers spread out, holding devices that hummed softly as they searched beneath the surface. Dara knelt down and touched the grass with her hand. "There's something strange here," she said. Vess walked over to her. "What is it?" "The soil," she said. "It's too perfect, too even. Natural ground has small variations, rocks, roots, layers built over time. This looks placed, like someone arranged it this way on purpose." Vess frowned. He looked around at the open field, the distant trees, the quiet hills. Everything looked completely natural. But if Dara was right, someone had gone through enormous effort to make an artificial landscape look real. One of the soldiers called out, "Sir, over here." Vess and Dara hurried toward him. He was standing near a small rock formation, half covered by grass. Carved into the stone were strange symbols, faded but still visible. Dara leaned closer, studying them carefully. Her eyes widened. "These are Korvax symbols," she said quietly. Vess stared at the markings. She was right. But something was wrong. The style was old, very old, matching records from thousands of years ago. Yet there were also newer marks layered on top, symbols that did not belong to any Korvax language at all. "Someone studied our writing," Vess said slowly. "Someone learned it, and then added their own." A cold wind passed over the field. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then, without warning, one of the scanning devices let out a sharp beep. "Sir," the soldier holding it said, "I'm detecting a life sign, a strong one, directly below us." Vess's hand moved instinctively to his weapon. "Human." The soldier checked the readings again. "Yes, sir. One human. No other signals nearby." "Just one?" Dara asked, surprised. "Just one." Vess considered the situation. A single human, alone, at the exact location of a missing Korvax base. It could not be a coincidence. "Bring the signal to the surface," Vess ordered. "Carefully. I want answers, not violence, unless necessary." The soldiers activated a scanning beam, tracing the source of the life sign. Slowly, a section of the ground began to shimmer, as if hidden by some kind of cloaking technology. Then, silently, a hidden platform rose up from beneath the grass, lifting into view. Standing on the platform was a single human. He was tall, dressed in simple dark clothing that gave no clue about his origin or purpose. His expression was calm, almost amused, as if he had been expecting visitors for a very long time. He did not look afraid. He did not even look surprised. The Korvax soldiers raised their weapons instantly. "Do not move," Vess said, stepping forward. "Identify yourself." The human looked at each of them, one by one, his gaze steady and unblinking. Then, in perfect Korvax language, without hesitation or accent, he spoke. "You're late," he said calmly. "We buried it ourselves." Silence fell over the field. Dara's mouth opened slightly in shock. Vess's grip on his weapon tightened. "You speak our language," Vess said carefully. "I do," the human replied. "Among other things." "How is that possible?" The human smiled, but it was not a threatening smile. It was almost gentle, like someone comforting a child who had just learned something confusing. "You left a great deal behind when you departed this planet," he said. "We had 30,000 years to study it." Vess exchanged a glance with Dara. Neither of them knew what to say. "Where is the base?" Vess demanded. "What happened to it?" The human tilted his head slightly, as if considering how much to reveal. "It's gone," he said simply. "We took it apart, piece by piece, a very long time ago." "That is not possible," Vess said sharply. "That base was built to withstand any force your species could produce." "At the time, yes," the human agreed. "But time changes many things, Vess." The Korvax officer froze. "How do you know my name?" The human's smile widened slightly. "We know a great deal, Commander Vess. We have been waiting for you, or someone like you, for a very long time." At that moment back on the ship, Commander Threll watched the video feed with growing unease. He saw the human standing calmly among his soldiers. He heard the translated words appear on his screen. His hands tightened into fists at his sides. "Get them out of there," he said quietly. But before the order could be given, the human on the surface raised his hand slightly, as if offering a simple invitation. "Do you want to know what we did with your base?" he asked, his voice calm and steady. "Follow me." He turned and began walking toward a hidden entrance in the ground, one that had not been there moments before. The Korvax soldiers hesitated, glancing at Vess for guidance. Vess stared at the human's back, his mind full of questions and quiet fear. Something about this planet, about this single calm human, felt far more dangerous than any war he had fought before. Slowly, cautiously, he gave the order. "Follow him." On the ship above, Threll watched his team disappear into the ground, swallowed by shadows and secrets 30,000 years in the making. His screen flickered, showing only darkness where the feed had once been. For the first time in centuries, Commander Threll felt something he had almost forgotten: fear. The tunnel entrance closed behind them with a soft, silent motion. No door slammed, no mechanism clicked. It simply folded shut as if the ground itself had healed over the opening. Vess turned back for a moment, staring at the spot where the entrance had been. Now there was only grass again, moving gently in the wind. His heart beat faster than he wanted to admit. "Sir," Dara whispered beside him, "we're cut off from the ship's signal." Vess checked his communicator. She was right. No connection, no static, just silence. Ahead of them, the human walked calmly, unbothered by the darkness or the 6 armed soldiers behind him. He moved like someone walking through his own home, not like a prisoner or a stranger. "Your communication devices will not work down here," the human said without turning around. "Do not worry, this is not a trap. If we wanted to harm you, you would already be gone." "That is not comforting," Vess muttered. The human almost laughed. "No, I suppose it isn't." They walked for several minutes. The tunnel was smooth, almost too smooth, as if it had been built rather than dug. Small lights glowed along the walls, though none of the Korvax could see where the light came from. There were no wires, no visible power source, just soft, steady illumination guiding their way forward. Dara studied the walls carefully as they walked. "This material," she said quietly to Vess, "I don't recognize it. It's not Korvax design. It's not human either, not the human designs we studied before we left this planet." "Then what is it?" Vess asked. Dara did not answer. She didn't have one. Finally, the tunnel opened into a massive chamber. The Korvax soldiers stopped walking, stunned into silence. The space before them was enormous, larger than anything they had expected to find beneath a quiet, grassy field. Towering structures rose from the chamber floor, some as tall as buildings, glowing faintly with a soft blue light. Screens and panels covered the walls, filled with symbols and data streams moving too fast to read. In the center of the room stood a massive circular platform, humming quietly with energy. It looked nothing like the primitive human world the Korvax remembered. "This is impossible," Vess said under his breath. The human turned to face them, his hands clasped behind his back. "Welcome," he said simply, "to what remains of your old base." "Remains?" Dara asked, stepping forward despite herself. "This looks fully operational." "It is," the human said, "but it is no longer yours." Vess's soldiers raised their weapons slightly, unsure of what to make of the situation. The human did not react with fear. He simply watched them, patient and calm, as if he had seen this exact reaction many times before. "Lower your weapons," Vess said quietly to his men. They hesitated, then obeyed. "Thank you," the human said. "Violence will not help you understand what happened here. Only patience will." "Then explain," Vess said. "Who are you? What is this place? And what happened to our base?" The human walked toward the center platform, gesturing for them to follow. "My name is Kyle," he said. "I am what you might call a historian. It is my duty to remember and to explain, when the time comes." "The time for what?" Dara asked. Kyle looked at her, his expression unreadable. "For this conversation." He placed his hand on the center platform, and the chamber around them shifted. Images began to form in the air, not solid objects but glowing light, shaping itself into scenes from the past. "When your people left this world," Kyle began, "you believed humanity was too primitive to matter. You watched us fight with simple weapons. You watched us build small villages, tell stories about gods, and struggle to survive against nature itself. You were not wrong. Not at that time." The floating images showed exactly that. Ancient humans farming, building fires, fighting with spears and swords. Vess watched in silence, memories from old records matching what he saw now. "But you left something behind," Kale continued. "This base. Sealed, hidden, filled with technology far beyond anything we had. You believed it would remain undiscovered forever." The images shifted again. Now they showed a group of humans dressed in strange clothing from a much later era, standing at the very entrance the Korvax had just walked through. They looked shocked, confused, staring at the hidden structure they had somehow found. "How did they find it?" Vess asked. "An accident," Kale said. "Centuries after you departed, a small group of humans were digging for water in a drought. They found a strange metal surface beneath the ground. Curiosity did the rest." The images showed the humans slowly exploring the base carefully, cautiously. Some looked terrified. Others looked amazed. Slowly, over many years, they began to understand what they had found. "At first we feared it," Kyle said. "We thought it might be a weapon or a trap left by gods we did not understand. But fear did not stop us from learning. It made us more careful, more determined." The images moved faster now, showing decades, then centuries passing. Humans studying alien technology, scientists working late into the night, generations passing the knowledge down, expanding it, improving it. "You studied our technology," Vess said quietly, almost to himself. "For thousands of years." "Yes," Kale said. "Slowly at first. It took nearly 1,000 years just to understand the basic principles of your power systems. But knowledge builds upon itself. What took centuries for the first generation took decades for the next. And what took decades soon took only years." Dara stared at the images, her scientific mind racing to process what she was seeing. "This isn't just imitation," she said. "This is innovation. You didn't just copy our technology. You built beyond it." Kyle nodded. "You are correct. We did not simply repeat what we found. We asked questions your engineers never considered. We combined your technology with ideas of our own. Over time, this base became something new, something neither fully Korvax nor fully human." Vess felt a strange tightness in his chest. "Why did you hide this from us? Why not contact us, trade with us? We could have shared knowledge freely, avoided all of this secrecy." Kale's expression grew serious for the first time. Because we remembered how you saw us, Vess. Not as equals. Not as a species worth respecting. You saw us as primitive creatures to observe from a distance, like insects under glass. Would such a species have shared true knowledge with us? Or would they have taken what we built and discarded us once it was no longer useful? Vess did not answer immediately. Deep down, some part of him knew Kale's words held truth. The Korvax High Council had never considered Earth an equal. They had seen it only as a resource, a curiosity, nothing more. So you decided to hide, Dara said quietly, to grow in silence. Yes, Kyle said. We understood something important, something many young species forget. Strength that is announced too early invites destruction. We learned to remain quiet. We learned to appear ordinary even as we grew far beyond what anyone believed possible. The floating images shifted one final time, showing modern-looking cities but strange, blended seamlessly into forests and mountains, hidden from any casual observer, appearing almost like natural landscapes from a distance. Our cities are not hidden underground like this base, Kale explained. They exist openly yet unseen, camouflaged by design so advanced that even satellite scans from other civilizations register only natural terrain. Vess stared at the images in stunned silence. Every survey the Korvax fleet had performed from orbit before descending had shown nothing but untouched wilderness. Now he understood why. You've been hiding an entire civilization, he said slowly. Right in plain sight. Yes, Kale said simply. The chamber fell quiet. The floating images faded, leaving only the soft blue glow of the room around them. Kale turned to face Vess directly, his calm expression unreadable once more. Now you understand, he said. The base did not disappear because it was destroyed. It disappeared because we no longer needed it. We took everything valuable from it, learned everything we could, and dismantled the rest, so no other species passing through this system would find evidence of what we had become. Why show us this? Dara asked. Why not simply let us leave, confused and empty-handed? Kyle studied her for a long moment. Because there is something else you need to understand. Something your commander, waiting above in his ship, needs to understand as well. What is that? Vess asked carefully. Kale's expression grew serious, almost solemn. You are not the first. Vess felt a chill move through him. What do you mean? Other species have visited this system before you returned, Kale said. Different travelers, different times, different intentions. Some came with curiosity, others came with hostility. In every case, the outcome was the same. And what outcome was that? Vess asked, though some part of him already feared the answer. Kale's eyes met his, steady and calm. None of them ever returned home. The words hung heavily in the chamber. The soldiers behind Vess shifted uneasily, their hands moving instinctively closer to their weapons once more. Are you threatening us? Vess asked, his voice low. No, Kale said firmly. I am warning you. There is a difference. Explain, Vess demanded. Kale turned, gesturing for them to follow him once more deeper into the chamber. As they walked, more screens flickered to life along the walls, this time showing something new. Defense systems, ships far more advanced than anything the Korvax had encountered before, silently patrolling the edges of the solar system. When other visitors came with peaceful intentions, Kyle explained, we welcomed them, cautiously, and eventually as allies. Trade began. Knowledge was exchanged, carefully and fairly, unlike the imbalance you once imposed upon us. The screens shifted, now showing something far more unsettling. Battles, brief and one-sided. Ships far more advanced than the visitors' own vessels, disabling them with ease, without a single shot fired in return. When others came with hostility, Kyle continued, his voice growing quieter, more serious. We responded accordingly, not out of anger, out of necessity. Vess stared at the images, his mind racing. The Korvax fleet above, though powerful by their own standards, suddenly felt small and vulnerable. You're saying humanity has already fought wars we know nothing about, Dara said slowly. And won. Yes, Kale said simply. Vess turned away from the screens, trying to process everything he had just witnessed. 30,000 years. That was how long the Korvax had been gone. 30,000 years was, apparently, more than enough time for a primitive species to become something far greater than anyone could have imagined. "What do you want from us?" Vess finally asked. "Why bring us down here? Why show us all of this?" Kale's expression softened slightly, though his eyes remained steady. "Because Commander Threll waiting above must make a choice very soon. And that choice will determine the future of your entire fleet." "What choice?" Vess asked. Before Kale could answer, a soft chime echoed through the chamber. Every screen around them flickered simultaneously, displaying a single alert message in both Korvax and human script. Dara's eyes widened as she read it. "Vess," she said urgently, "something is happening up there." Kyle looked toward the ceiling of the chamber, though there was nothing to see but stone and metal above them. His expression remained calm, but his voice carried a quiet weight. "It seems," he said slowly, "your commander has grown impatient." High above, aboard the Korvax ship, Commander Threll stood rigid at the command console, watching dozens of new signals appear across his tactical display. Ships, dozens of them, materializing silently around his vessel from seemingly nowhere, surrounding his fleet in complete silence. "Report," Threll demanded. "Where did these ships come from?" His officers worked frantically at their stations, but no clear answers came. The vessels had appeared without warning, without any detectable approach, simply present one moment where empty space had been the moment before. On the main screen, a single human face appeared, calm and composed, speaking directly to the bridge in perfect Korvax language. "Commander Threll," the voice said evenly, "your team is safe and will be returned to you shortly. But first, we believe it is time we spoke directly, you and I." Threll's hands tightened at his sides as he stared at the screen, surrounded on all sides by ships he could not identify, technology he did not understand, and a species he had once dismissed as primitive and harmless. For the first time in his long life, Commander Threll realized he was no longer in control of the situation. Far below, in the quiet blue-lit chamber beneath the earth, Kale turned back to Vess and Dara, his expression calm despite the tension rippling through the base above them. "Come," he said softly. "It is time you both understood exactly what your people are truly facing." And with that, he led them deeper still, toward the truth that had been waiting patiently for 30,000 years. Commander Threll stared at the screen in front of him. The human face looking back was calm, almost gentle. But something about that calmness felt more dangerous than any battle cry. "Who are you?" Threll asked, his voice tight with control. "My name is not important right now," the man said. "What is important is that your people are safe, and that you and I have much to discuss." Around the Korvax ship, dozens of unknown vessels floated in perfect silence. They did not move aggressively. They did not power up weapons. They simply waited, surrounding the fleet like a quiet wall of shadows. Threll turned to his tactical officer. "Can we break through them if needed?" The officer's fingers moved quickly over his panel, then stopped. His face went pale. "Commander, I can't get a clear reading on their weapon systems. It's like scanning fog. I don't know what we're dealing with." Threll's jaw tightened. 30,000 years ago, this system had been simple, predictable. Now it felt like walking into a room with the lights turned off, surrounded by things he could not see. "Let us speak," the human voice said again, patient and steady. "There is no need for further tension, Commander. If we wished to destroy your fleet, it would already be finished." The words were not shouted. They were not threatening in tone, but they landed heavier than any threat Threll had ever received in his long military career. He took a slow breath. "Speak then." Deep below the surface, in the glowing blue chamber, Kale continued walking, leading Vess and Dara through wide corridors filled with quiet humming machines. Neither of them spoke. Both were still trying to absorb everything they had witnessed. "You said we are not the first to visit," Vess finally said, breaking the silence. "Tell me about the others." Kyle nodded slowly. There were 3 before you. Each one came at a different point in our growth. Each one taught us something important. What happened to them? Dara asked. The first came only a few thousand years after your departure, Kale said. A small scouting group much like yourselves, searching for resources. They were curious, not hostile. We were still primitive then, barely beginning to understand the technology we had found in your base. And? Bess pressed. We hid, Kyle said simply. We were not ready to be seen. We watched them search, find nothing, and leave. That encounter taught us patience. They continued walking as Kale spoke, passing through a corridor lined with more silent screens, each showing fragments of history. Quiet forests, hidden villages, careful footsteps avoiding detection. The second visitors came much later, Kale continued. Nearly 10,000 years after the first. By then we had grown much further. We had already begun building the early foundations of what you now see around you. The screens shifted, showing a new scene. Armored explorers stepping cautiously onto Earth's surface, their equipment far more advanced than the first group. They were less careful than the first, Kyle said, his tone growing quieter. They captured a small human settlement, believing they had found a simple, isolated tribe. Dara's chest tightened. What did you do? We showed restraint, Kyle said. We freed our people without violence, using knowledge and technology those visitors did not expect from what they believed were primitive humans. They left confused, uncertain of what they had truly encountered. That encounter taught us the value of controlled strength. Vess felt his pulse quicken. And the third? Kale's expression grew heavier, the calmness in his voice thinning slightly. The third visitors came only a few thousand years ago. By then, we were no longer hiding out of necessity. We were hiding by choice, having already surpassed most threats we might encounter. The screen shifted one final time, revealing a darker scene. A large alien fleet, weapons raised, attacking without warning or communication. They attacked first, Kyle said. Without question, without conversation. They saw Earth, believed it undefended, and tried to claim it as their own. Vess watched the silent images of battle unfold. Human-built ships, sleek and efficient, moving with impossible precision against a far larger invading force. Explosions bloomed silently across the screen, one after another, until only a handful of enemy ships remained, disabled and drifting. We did not destroy them completely, Kyle said. We removed their ability to fight, then allowed them to leave, carrying a message back to whoever had sent them. What message? Dara asked quietly. Kale turned to face them both, his eyes steady. That Earth was no longer available for conquest. Silence filled the corridor. Vess stared at the frozen image of the disabled enemy fleet, feeling a growing weight settle into his chest. You said none of them ever returned home, Vess said slowly. But you also said you let that fleet leave. They left, Kale confirmed, but they never reached their destination. What happened to them afterward remains unknown, even to us. Perhaps their own species dealt with their failure. Perhaps something else found them first. Space is vast, Vess, and not everything within it is kind. Vess said nothing. The implication was clear enough without further explanation. They continued walking, deeper into the base, until they reached a massive chamber unlike anything they had passed before. Unlike the glowing technology of the earlier rooms, this space felt different, quieter, and more reverent, like walking into a place designed to honor memory rather than display power. Rows of tall stone pillars stretched from floor to ceiling, each one covered in carved names, dates, and symbols. Vess recognized some of the writing as Korvax script, mixed together with human language and other unfamiliar symbols entirely. What is this place? Dara asked softly, her voice filled with quiet awe. This, Kyle said, is our memorial. Every name here represents someone lost during our long journey to this point. Human names. Korvax names from those who chose to stay behind and live among us, rather than return to your fleet so long ago. Vess froze. Korvax names? You mean... Some of our own people remained here? Kyle nodded. A small group, yes. Scientists mostly. When your fleet departed all those years ago, a handful chose to stay, believing there was still much to learn from this world. Over generations, they became part of us, teaching us as much about your people as your base's technology ever could. Vess stepped closer to one of the pillars, reading a name carved into the stone in familiar Korvax script. His breath caught slightly. Commander, you're a Threll, he read aloud, stunned. Kale watched him carefully. Yes, related to your current commander, in fact. Distant ancestor, if the records are correct. Vess turned sharply toward Kale. Threll's own bloodline helped build this. In part, Kale said, though I suspect he does not know that yet. Dara stepped closer, studying the pillar herself, her mind working quickly. This changes things, she said slowly. This isn't just a story about humans outgrowing us. It's a story about cooperation too, about choice. Kale nodded approvingly. You understand more quickly than most, Dara. This has never been solely about conflict between our peoples. It has always been about choice, what each side decides to become, given time and opportunity. Vess turned away from the pillar, his mind heavy with new questions. Why tell us all of this now? Why show us the wars, the losses, and now this memorial? Kale's expression grew serious once more. Because very soon your commander will be given a choice of his own. And I believe understanding everything you have seen here will help you guide him toward the wiser decision. Before Vess could respond, the ground beneath them trembled slightly. Alarms began echoing softly through the chamber, calm but insistent. What's happening? Dara asked, alarmed. Kale's eyes lifted toward the ceiling, though nothing could be seen above them but solid stone. It seems, he said quietly, your commander has decided not to wait any longer. Aboard the Korvax ship, Threll stood rigid before the main screen, staring at the calm human face still watching him from across an impossible distance. You have had enough time to speak, Threll said sharply. I want my officers returned immediately, and I want a full explanation of your intentions. The human on the screen studied him for a long moment before responding. Commander, I understand your frustration, but threats will not accelerate this process. Patience will. I have shown patience, Threll snapped. For 30,000 years my people considered your species beneath our notice, undeserving of concern. That patience has clearly cost us. The human's expression shifted slightly, something unreadable passing behind his calm eyes. Interesting, he said quietly. You admit it so openly. Threll's hands clenched at his sides. I admit nothing beyond what is obvious. Your species has grown beyond anything we anticipated. That is now clear. What remains unclear is your intention toward my fleet. Our intention, the human said evenly, depends entirely on your next decision, Commander. Threll's tactical officer suddenly spoke up, his voice tense. Commander, our shields are being scanned. Deep-level scanning, far beyond anything our systems have encountered before. Threll's eyes narrowed. For what purpose? The human on the screen answered before the officer could respond. To determine whether your fleet still poses the same threat your ancestors once did, or whether you, Commander Threll, might be capable of a different choice than those before you. Threll felt a chill settle over him. And if I am not? The human's expression remained calm, almost sorrowful. Then history will repeat itself, as it always does with those who choose violence over understanding. Silence stretched between them, heavy and tense. Threll's mind raced through countless tactical options, each one weighed against the unknown, overwhelming strength surrounding his fleet. Finally, he exhaled slowly, forcing his shoulders to relax slightly. Return my officers, he said, peacefully, and we will speak further, without threats from either side. The human studied him carefully as if searching for any sign of deception. After a long pause, he nodded slowly. A wise choice, Commander. Perhaps there is hope for you yet. The screen went dark. leaving Threll standing alone amid the quiet tension of his own bridge, surrounded by silent enemy ships he still did not fully understand. Deep below, the trembling in the chamber slowly faded, alarms falling silent once more. Kale let out a quiet breath, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "Your commander has chosen patience," he said. For now. Vess felt a strange mixture of relief and unease settle within him. "You make it sound as though this could still change." "It could," Kale admitted honestly. "Fear often changes decisions quickly, especially among proud species unaccustomed to feeling vulnerable." Dara looked between Kale and Vess, her expression thoughtful. "What happens now?" Kale turned toward a large door at the far end of the memorial chamber, one neither Vess nor Dara had noticed before. Slowly it began to open, revealing bright daylight beyond. "Now," Kale said, "you return to your commander. Both of you carry knowledge no other Korvax possesses. Use it wisely." Vess hesitated at the doorway, glancing back toward Kale one final time. "And if Threll does not choose wisely, what happens then?" Kale's expression grew solemn, his eyes steady and unwavering. "Then, Commander Vess, your fleet will join a long list of names carved into stone, remembered only as another lesson in a history far older and far greater than your people ever imagined." Vess swallowed hard, the weight of those words settling deep within him. Without another word, he turned and stepped through the doorway, Dara close behind him, leaving Kale standing quietly within the memorial chamber, surrounded by names of those who had shaped this moment across 30,000 years. As sunlight touched Vess's face once more, he realized with sudden clarity that the greatest danger his people now faced was not the strength of humanity's ships or weapons. It was their own pride, standing stubbornly in the face of a truth too vast to ignore. And as the shuttle prepared to lift them back toward the waiting fleet above, Vess could not shake one final chilling thought. Somewhere above them, Commander Threll was about to face the most important decision of his long life. And the fate of every soul aboard their fleet rested entirely on the choice he was about to make. The shuttle rose slowly through the clouds, carrying Vess and Dara back toward the waiting Korvax fleet. Neither of them spoke during the ascent. Both were still processing everything they had witnessed beneath the earth. The memorial, the wars, the quiet strength of a species they had once dismissed as primitive. Dara stared out the window as Earth grew smaller beneath them. "Do you think he'll listen?" she asked quietly. "Commander Threll, I mean." Vess did not answer right away. He thought of the carved name he had seen on the stone pillar, Ura Threll, an ancestor of his commander, who had chosen to stay behind on this world so long ago. He wondered if that connection would matter at all, or if pride would silence everything else. "I don't know," Vess finally admitted, "but we have to try." The shuttle docked smoothly inside the main ship, and the doors opened to reveal Threll waiting on the other side, flanked by 2 armed guards. His expression was unreadable, carved from years of discipline and control. "Report," Threll said sharply before either of them had fully stepped off the shuttle. Vess straightened his posture. "Commander, what we witnessed down there changes everything. I recommend we speak privately before any further decisions are made." Threll studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. "My quarters, now." Inside the quiet privacy of the commander's quarters, Vess and Dara recounted everything. The vanished base, the hidden cities, the memorial chamber, and the 3 previous encounters between humanity and other species. Threll listened without interrupting, his face growing more troubled with each passing detail. When Vess finally mentioned the name carved into the stone pillar, Threll's expression shifted for the first time, a flicker of something unguarded crossing his features. "Ura Threll," he repeated quietly. "That name, it exists in our old family records. A distant ancestor, lost during the early observation years. We were told he died during an accident on the surface." "He did not die, Commander," Vess said gently. "He stayed. He chose to remain here and helped shape what humanity eventually became." Threll turned away, walking slowly toward the window overlooking the planet below. For a long moment he said nothing, simply staring down at the blue and green world that held secrets far deeper than he had ever imagined. 30,000 years, he said quietly, almost to himself. We left this world believing it beneath our attention. And in our absence, it became something greater than we ever dared to become ourselves. Dara stepped forward carefully. Commander, the humans are not asking for conflict. Kale made that clear. They are offering a choice. A choice, Threll repeated, turning back to face them. And if I choose wrong, our entire fleet suffers the consequences of my pride. Yes, Vess said honestly. That is exactly the risk. Threll closed his eyes briefly, the weight of command settling heavily across his shoulders. For a species who had always considered itself superior, admitting vulnerability did not come easily. But he had seen the silent fleet surrounding his ships. He had felt, for the first time in centuries, the true meaning of powerlessness. Contact them, Threll said finally. Tell them I'm ready to speak. Properly this time. The main screen flickered to life once more, revealing the same calm human face from before. Beside him now stood Kale, along with several other humans, each dressed simply, each carrying an air of quiet confidence rather than aggression. Commander Threll, Kale said evenly, I understand you have had time to reflect. Threll straightened, forcing his voice to remain steady despite the storm of emotions beneath the surface. I have, and I wish to understand fully what it is your people want from us. Kale's expression softened slightly. We do not want anything from you, Commander. Not war, not conquest, not even apology, though one might be appropriate. Threll's jaw tightened slightly at that final comment, but he did not argue. Then what is the purpose of this demonstration? To determine what kind of neighbors we will become, Kyle said simply. The galaxy is far larger than either of our species alone, Commander. We have learned this ourselves through contact with others beyond this system. Conflict benefits no one in the long run. Understanding does. Threll studied the humans on the screen carefully. Their calmness was not born from weakness, he realized. It was born from confidence, the quiet certainty of a species that no longer needed to prove itself through violence. You could have destroyed my fleet the moment we arrived, Threll said slowly. Why show restraint? Kyle's expression grew thoughtful. Because destruction teaches nothing, Commander. It only ends conversations before they begin. We prefer to give others the same chance we were once given. The chance to choose differently than expected. Threll felt something shift within him, some old certainty crumbling quietly beneath the weight of new understanding. He thought of his ancestor, Ura Threll, who had chosen curiosity over fear so many years ago. Perhaps it was time to honor that same choice. What would you have us do? Threll asked finally. Kale glanced briefly toward Vess and Dara, still standing quietly beside their commander before returning his attention to Threll. Leave peacefully, Commander. Return to your people, and share what you have learned here today. Should you wish to return one day, do so as guests, not as observers studying insects beneath glass. The words stung, but Threll did not argue against their truth. And if my superiors do not accept such terms, Kale's expression grew solemn. Then, as with those before you, the choice will belong to them alone, and the consequences will follow accordingly. Threll absorbed the weight of those words carefully. He glanced toward Vess, silently seeking guidance, and found only quiet resolve reflected back at him. I will carry this message myself, Threll said finally. Personally, to the High Council. Kale studied him for a long moment, searching for sincerity within his expression. Finally, he nodded slowly. Then perhaps there is hope yet for peace between our peoples, Commander Threll. As preparations began for the fleet's departure, Threll found himself standing once more before the window overlooking Earth, Vess quietly joining him. You believe this was the right choice? Threll asked, his voice quieter than before. Vess considered the question carefully. I believe it was the only choice that gives us any future here at all. Threll nodded slowly, though uncertainty still lingered behind his eyes. 30,000 years, Vess. We considered ourselves explorers, conquerors, students of lesser species. And this entire time, we were merely visitors, tolerated only because of a version of restraint we never offered them. Perhaps that is the lesson in all of this, Vess offered quietly. Strength is not simply the ability to conquer, Commander. Sometimes it is the wisdom to recognize when conquest was never the answer to begin with. Before Threll could respond, Dara approached quickly, her expression urgent. Commander, there's something you should see. She gestured toward a nearby screen, where new information had just appeared, historical records, quietly shared by the humans as a final gesture before departure. Threll and Vess stepped closer, studying the data carefully. The records revealed something neither of them had anticipated, evidence that the two previous alien species defeated by Earth's defenses had, in fact, eventually returned, not as conquerors, but as allies. Their fleets now worked alongside humanity, trading knowledge and resources across multiple star systems, forming quiet but powerful alliances far beyond what the Korvax High Council had ever imagined possible. They didn't destroy their enemies, Dara said softly. They transformed them into partners. Threll stared at the data, a strange mixture of humility and quiet respect settling over him. A remarkable philosophy, he admitted, given time enough to develop. Perhaps we could learn from it as well, Vess said quietly. Threll turned away from the screen, his gaze drifting once more toward the peaceful blue planet below. Somewhere down there, an entire civilization existed quietly, hidden not out of weakness, but out of wisdom earned through countless generations of patience and growth. Prepare the fleet for departure, Threll finally ordered, his voice steady and calm. We return home carrying knowledge instead of conquest. As the Korvax fleet slowly turned away from Earth, preparing for the long journey back through the stars, Threll remained on the bridge, watching the planet shrink smaller and smaller on the main screen. Beside him, Vess spoke quietly. Do you believe the High Council will accept your report, Commander? Threll considered the question carefully before answering. I do not know. Pride runs deep within our people, much as it once did within humanity's ancestors. But perhaps, given enough time, understanding will prevail over pride, just as it did here. He paused, glancing once more toward the distant blue world. We came here searching for a base we built 30,000 years ago, expecting to find exactly what we had left behind. And instead? Vess asked. Instead, Threll said quietly, we found proof that even the smallest, most overlooked beginnings can grow into something far greater than anyone dared imagine. The ship's engines hummed steadily as the fleet prepared for the jump back into deep space. Earth remained visible on the screen for a few final moments, calm, quiet, and untouched, hiding within its peaceful appearance an entire civilization far beyond anything the galaxy had expected. As the stars began to stretch once more, signaling the fleet's departure into warp, Threll allowed himself one final, quiet thought. The base hadn't vanished because it was destroyed. It had vanished because humanity no longer needed it. They had already become something far greater, and as the Korvax fleet disappeared silently into the stars, Earth remained exactly as it always had. Calm, quiet, and patiently waiting, ready for whatever visitors the galaxy might send next.